Hey everyone, welcome to the program, WRSA Radio. I'm your host, G1, as always. Hope you're having a good week. It's been I've been a busy beaver this week, knocking out multiple projects. I've had two job interviews. They both went well, and I hope one of those pans out. But I also have a prospect for a third one next week, so who knows? Maybe the tide is finally turning and things are moving in the right direction. Anyway, I am sore from all of the heavy lifting and yard work and things that I've been working on today. But enough about me. What do we have on the menu for today? Well, I'm going to avoid the public spectacle between Elon Musk and Donald Trump that's kind of brewed up over the last day or so, because I think it's all fake. I think it's fake and gay and lame, and the less we talk about it, the better. I'm far more interested in talking about the events from over the weekend in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Yes, this story grabbed the attention of people for a few days, and now it's kind of taken a backseat to other things going on, but really because those of us in the West, these things, they were happening thousands of miles away, and no one really cared. Oh, yeah, okay, Russia, Ukraine fight, okay. Hearing about this on Sunday, I was very surprised. I was traveling. I was surprised, but not really shocked to see the story just kind of languishing below the fold on most of the media websites. It was kind of like an also happening story right next to the local color smiley face nonsense that you get on, media websites, which is a stark contrast considering what was actually happening and and what it all means in the grand scheme of things. This event would be kind of like narco terrorists drone striking Minot or Whiteman or a couple of other Air Force bases and blowing the ever-loving shit out of some B-52s and B-1s and stealth bombers. It's a huge deal. This was not just Ukraine slinging some drones at Moscow and hoping they hit something important. This was a coordinated, deep strike into Russian territory that was launched right under their noses. Some of these targets were thousands and thousands of miles away from Ukraine. Now, I will back up and give a little caveat to a potential attack on the U.S. like that. I know that systems exist that will shut down drones if they fly within specific areas. There's multiple things out there. Counter drone is a thing. It is a growing field, a growing technology. I know those systems are currently deployed. They are in use at U.S. government facilities. So someone trying to do this to a U.S. base would find it a little bit more difficult than what they found there in Russia. I don't think the Russians had any kind of system deployed at those bases, obviously, because they didn't expect something like that to happen. But that all being said, those systems, they might not catch everything. Okay, there may be some latest and greatest new iteration of a drone out there that can slip right through those systems. And they're not deployed everywhere. So it's entirely possible for someone to replicate this on the United States. And I'll come back to that point later, so keep it in mind. But just in case you missed the details, here's what's happened. Ukraine says that for the last 18 months, they've been planning and preparing for this attack. So this would be back into the Biden administration, which is another point we'll come back to. They build covert launching platforms for these swarms of drones, which are disguised as portable buildings. It looks kind of like they were made to look like the little tiny homes, the shipping container houses that can just be transported on the back of a truck and just dropped off somewhere. So these containers are on flatbed trailers, and they were transported into Russia. and then the trucks were driven to within a close proximity to these large strategic airfields where the Russian nuclear capable bombers are parked. And at some signal, the tops of these containers pop open and the swarms take off. The drones contained an AI control targeting module that allowed them to autonomously select targets. And if you watch the videos pretty closely, for example, you can see them skipping targets that were already struck. So they could tell when an aircraft was on fire, and they would skip that one and go to the next one that was not on fire. It's very, very interesting. So there's some interesting stuff going on there. They caused significant damage, destroyed a large number of aircraft. Some of the drones were shot down, and at least one of the drivers of the trucks was attacked and killed in the process of this attack. At least one of the drivers was arrested. He professed to have no knowledge of the events, which I tend to believe. There's no reason to give him that information. Simply telling drivers, be here at this day and this time and no later, and there's a big bonus for you, involved here. That's all you need. That's all you need. They don't have to have any knowledge of really what's hidden inside of that container. Now, there were, of course, a storm of internet comments suggesting that there's no way that Ukraine could have done this on their own, so on and so forth. But let's put part of that lie to bed really quick. This attack, while it was sophisticated and it involved clearly detailed planning and execution, is well within the capability of Ukraine. There are a lot of smart people there who have the skills and the expertise to carry this out with no problems. Now, does that mean that they didn't have Western help? Not at all. Okay, they have the capability, but they are kind of missing a couple of elements here. They need at least two things that I believe can easily be traced back to a Western nation. They needed imagery of the targets that was up to date. Ukraine does not have satellite systems to pull down imagery. Although, it's possible to get fairly recent imagery from some commercial sources. So it's possible, although not likely, that they used a commercial source for that imagery. The other thing is they needed reliable communication to those containers that would allow them to launch the attack in a coordinated fashion. Again, that's something that could come from commercial sources. Possible, probably not likely. I suspect that all of that was satellite provided. The comms may have been cellular first and then satellite as a fallback, whatever. But I think either way, there's no doubt that service came from a Western nation. The question is, the real mystery here, is what government entity provided that assistance? Well, the obvious finger is pointed at our own government, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. It could have been the EU pretty easily, more specifically the UK or Germany. I would put good money on one of those two being involved in this. Now, all in all, this taking place, as I said, is a dangerous thing. However, it has a covert element to it, meaning Russia can suspect all it wants and they can wag their fingers at it, but the only publicly acknowledged perpetrator is Ukraine. They've said, hey, we did this. So until Russia finds some solid, incontrovertible evidence that links a Western nation to this, then it's speculation. And I don't think Vlad is going to order nuking the U.S. or the U.K. even based off of speculation. That's too big of an escalation. I don't think that rules out Ukraine, though, because he has to do something. He has to respond. So far, it's been a series of attacks on Ukraine, using missiles, drones, sort of the more conventional kind of things that we've seen up to this point. But that will not continue. I think there will be more in response. I think that the Russians just needed a little time to plan something, probably get some resources into place, and there will likely be a large strike take place within the next 24 to 48 hours. And Donald Trump has much confirmed this right after a call that he had with Putin, which I believe took place yesterday. And he basically said, Putin wants revenge, and it is going to happen. And that's where the point I made about U.S. counter-drone systems comes into play. The scenario that I provided using, narco-terrorists as an example, but it could be a host of other potential culprits. It could be seen or framed as environmental terrorism or protesters or Antifa or BLM, whatever. There's a lot of people that could wear the mask there. And that could be a path for Putin to retaliate and provide plausible deniability to him. Hey, looks like bombers these days just have a way of blowing up on the ramp. Fancy that. See, the real problem with this attack was that was really what took place before the attack. Last week a couple of U.S. officials paid Zelensky a public visit. Lindsey Graham and Dick Blumenthal. They went on this congressional junket, this visit, as well as former official Mike Pompeo also paid a visit. So to anyone on the outside, looking back in hindsight, this looks very much like an unofficial green light on these attacks. These guys went there, they had behind closed doors talks and said, yep, looks like you're good to go. We'll cut you a check, what have you. Who knows? That you're speculating, but it very much looks like someone went there to give Zelensky the okay or the final word on launching this attack. But the timing is just too coincidental. And in fact, I believe that's exactly what it was. And here's what I think happened. This is my kind of rundown of this. I think this mission was planned way back in the Biden administration, probably planned in a U.S. intel agency. I believe that the deep state and uniparty people who desperately want a war with Russia, this people like Graham and Blumenthal and Pompeo, were very much aware that a mission was in the works. I don't think it's likely that they had exact details, but they knew something was in the process. They probably understood it as a deep strike into Russia using drones, something like that. I believe that the day-to-day support and command of the mission was transferred out of the United States once Trump won the election. And it was likely moved to the UK to see this through and ride it all the way out. I believe that the timing of the trip was done purposefully in order to just give the appearance that Trump is being duplicitous and that he's aware of this. No a leader wants to admit or even at least publicly admit that they don't have any idea what some of the parts and aspects of their government are doing, that they don't have full control over that, So that's what this was. It was, we're going to publicly get out there and make it look like that behind the scenes, Trump's talking peace. He's talking out of one side of his mouth with Putin, saying he wants to end the war and he wants to rein in Zelensky and all that. But on the other hand, he's given them the green light to launch this deep attack. I don't think Trump was aware of it. I think that he, if he had gotten wind of it, he would have shut it down. And that's not like me just being an apologist or anything for Trump. I just think he really wants to stop the war to kind of show his geopolitical chops. And he's talked about how he's a friend of Putin and knows Putin and can deal with him and these kind of things. And that's what he's pinning some of this on. He wants to be the guy that makes this war end. This happening on the eve of the peace negotiations, not only does it derail those talks, it potentially escalates the war. And I don't think he wanted that at all. And this was a deep state play through and through. And it's just yet more evidence that the work to clean out the intel services has not even begun. Okay, we're just scratching surface on that. They are a nest of vipers that seem hell-bent on getting the world irradiated. And damn those people, just damn them all to hell for what they're doing. When we uproot them and drag them out into the light, there's no death too horrendous for them. The whole lot of them. Now I hope cooler heads prevail, and I hope that Vlad knows and understands that Trump is not really in control of all of this. I suspect that there was a conversation like that took place. History tells us that Kennedy had the same kinds of conversations with Khrushchev, and saying, hey, both of them at certain points said, we don't have any control over what our intel agencies are doing. I suspect that Trump told Vlad, look, there's people moving that I don't have any visibility to. They're doing things that I don't have any awareness of. I can't control them. And I think Putin understands that, coming from his background and understanding how the old Soviet Union worked. He probably has a good idea and appreciation of that. But maybe it's time his agents go to work and start doing some of the job for us. Just get the ball rolling. I don't know. We shall see. Anyway, that is all I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab, Nice Crew, and the mothership at the Cold Fury blog. And I'll see you on the next episode.